Easy's note. This FIC is re-uploaded using Microsoft Zira. I've hit my conversion limit for neural text-to-speech, but Ivanajoey was difficult to listen to, easier to just do the whole thing again. Apologies. Absolute Overhaul, by Hydreigon_Omega. Chapter 1, Comicon, the Gateway to Other Worlds. After nearly a half hour of driving, I had arrived at Comicon to set up my shop. Normally I wouldn't attend Comicon because I do not like the big crowds that attend those conventions. This year was different. I had planned to attend this convention because last year my friends invited me to join them at the convention for this year. I was a little skeptical at first because I had heard stories of people disappearing after attending those conventions, but they brushed it off as fake news. By the time Comicon was only a month away, my friends told me that they could no longer attend to it because they had important things come up and were forced to take the entire week off because of it. Though by the time they cancelled the plan to attend, I had already spent more than $2,000 on getting my costume ready, so I decided that I had already spent the money, so I might as well go. My costume Chisaki from My Hero Academia, more commonly known as Overhaul, but no matter how hard I looked, I could never find his signature mask, so I stuck with the fabric one he wore before he was a villain. Once I had placed down my trade and barter shop, I sat there for a while before the people began to flood in. While I had several successful sales, my stand was rarely noticed compared to the hundreds of other ones. It was uneventful compared to what I thought would happen after hearing reports of people disappearing, but I didn't know what to expect because those reports were very vague. "Excuse me," a man in an Esterosa cosplay said as he stopped in front of my stand, "I see you don't have Overhaul's signature mask, so I am willing to trade." I said after I looked up from my phone, "You're trading Chisaki's mask? What would you like for it?" "That one," he said, pointing to one of my swords. "My little brother and I are cosplaying as Esterosa and Zildries. I had a hard time finding his sword, so I am glad you have one like it." "Glad to help," I replied as I handed him the replica sword as he handed me the mask. "Is that all?" "Yes," he said before shaking my hand. "Thanks man, you're a lifesaver." "No problem," I said as the pair of brothers walked off. When I put on the new mask, I could breathe so much easier than wearing a thick piece of cloth strapped to my face. To be honest, it felt like I was breathing clean air that came straight out of a purifier with not even a tenth of its weight on my face. By the end of the day I decided to stop by the few other vendors that remained. After I had put everything of mine up, most of the vendors had extremely upcharge items that would be a scam buying. Before I left I stopped by a food vendor that commonly went to during the convention. "Hey!" the guy behind the booth said, "What can I get for you?" I looked at the menu and saw that it was mostly different kinds of bread. The souls of the innocent. I thought to myself, a bagel nuhu. 2 bagels. "Okay, here you go," he said as he pulled out a bagel, and placed them each in a napkin. "That'll be $5." I paid for them before I raised my mask and crammed the first one into my mouth. Then I took the other one before I walked off. After the convention had officially ended, I was walking back to my car with half of my other bagel still uneaten. Once I had gotten about halfway to my car, my body started going numb. First I thought that my left foot was falling asleep before it crept up my leg to my knee, then hip. "He put something in my bagel," I said angrily. "So those were my final words before I die, huh?" I felt my body collapse over my numb leg before I fell and hit the hard asphalt before I lost all consciousness. When I awoke, I felt part of my body covered in dust like I had been lying in a pile of dirt for a few hours. My body reflexively twitched from the sensation of dirt on my skin. How long was I knocked out for? Is it nighttime? I don't see any stars. When my eyes finally adjusted to lighting, I saw a stony ceiling staring at me. I jumped when I realized I didn't know where I was. Well, I know that I am in a cave, but I don't know how to get home. I looked for any way I could have gotten here, but there was no other way than the main entrance. "Where am I?" I said as I exited the cave, which I soon found out was located on a cliff. As I looked off the cliff, there wasn't that far of a drop, or at least not compared to other cliffs. This was just a small ledge, and judging by the distance between me and the treetops, I'd say I am only about 10 to 18 feet off the ground. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but I shouldn't be too far off the ground. But jumping off the ledge would hurt very badly if it didn't kill me. I returned to the cave to think. I took off my gloves and stuck them in my coat pockets as I thought how I would return to civilization. I took a rock and began using it to etch onto the wall what I was thinking. The rock suddenly exploded as my hand twitched in pain from the shards hitting it. My first thought was that it was a highly compact explosive powder, but upon closer inspection the shards were surrounding my wrist, levitating in the air around it. "No way!" I said. I pressed my bare hand against the wall, which broke into several tiny pieces. "This is awesome." I used the stone I collected to create for myself a pair of stone gauntlets with sharpened fingertips. Even though they should have weighed several times my own weight, they were as light as a feather and I could move the fingers as if they were my own. Now I had a way to get off the ledge. I climbed off the top of the ledge and plunged my stone cover hands into the side of the ledge as I slowly lowered myself down. When I reached the ground, the trees were unlike any I have ever seen before. The tree's bark was darker than a starless midnight sky. Not wanting to waste any time, I walked through the forest. While it did creep me out, there was no other way for me to find any way home without first finding where I was. I kept a watchful eye for wild animals while I traveled through the forest. While I did see the common mouse or small creature that wasn't much of a threat, I kept seeing green eyes on what I thought were wooden wolves. Nearly an hour into my journey to find a town of any kind, it started to rain as I pulled my hood over my head. "Great," I complained to myself, "rain, exactly what I needed." I had to walk for nearly another hour before I had even seen anything that was different from the green leaves and pitch-black bark. I dispersed my stone gauntlets and let the shards fall to ground as I reached into my pockets and placed my white gloves back on. A small cottage rested near the edge of the forest, only being separated by a small stream flowing down out of sight. Being tired from all the walking, I was surprised to find out that I even had enough energy to even walk up to the door to knock on it. "Coming," a feminine voice said, before the door opened. "Eep. What is she? Is she a yellow horsewoman? Just thinking that sounds weird. Excuse me, but I really need a place for the night. I am willing to reimburse you in any way I can." I could only imagine how much I look like a murderer right now. "Please come in," she said. "You must be freezing from all this rain. I'm going to go make you a cup of tea." "Thank you," I said as I entered the cottage and placed my jacket on a coat rack. Only a few minutes had passed before the tea was finished. It had a sweet aroma. "So, do you have a name?" "My name?" I asked, and it was at this moment I realized I could remember my name no matter how hard I tried. My name is Kai Chisaki, but you can just call me Chisaki." "Nice to meet you, Chisaki," the mayor said. "My name is Fluttershy." "Pleased to meet you," I said. I am starting to doubt that I'll be able to find a way home. Why should I even bother trying to go back anyways? Ever since I got here, I had trouble remembering anything that has happened before, what I could only assume was yesterday. But now I have a power that can literally allow me to destroy and reshape the world in any way I want. What am I going to do with this power? I can only assume if it was made public knowledge that I'd be hunted. So maybe for a while it'll be best to keep it on the down low for now.